Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. What's up? How's it going? Novel artists. Oh, goodness. And I'm having a spotty connection. So hopefully I'm not going to be cutting in and out through this live stream. But anyhow, so what we're doing today. Oh, my goodness. I got to set something up real quick. I forgot to set up one thing on YouTube, so I'm going to go ahead and set that up. But anyhow, while I'm setting that up, I'll go ahead and hopefully talk and chew gum at the same time. Let's see here. I just have to set up one thing. So basically, what we're going to be doing today is working on Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. We're also going to be working, it's basically page 151, so it's a very high proof page. That's an old college joke. I'm here all night, guys. But anyhow, so I'm going to be working on shading that page, probably for the next, let's see, like, maybe, and tonight, I'm planning on meeting up with good friends of mine in No Saboteurs and playing some music because our drummer is over for the weekend. So that's kind of the plan. But during the stream, boom, I'm going to work on shading this page. So Elizabeth has just woken up. Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And right now, Elizabeth has woken up and is basically waking up from a dream where she's remembering her brother drowning. And that's kind of where we leave off. And I'm pretty excited. This is, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but this is probably the longest comic at this point that I have ever made. And it's still got a long ways to go. But just to get through 150 of these pages is a lot. Like, it's been a journey. But I'm really excited about it. Like, I think I mentioned this on yesterday's stream. But I looked this whole thing in sequence because I print the pages out in sequence as I'm working on them so I can kind of see how the page flow goes and stuff like that. And it's just looking incredible. So, and I think it's the neat thing that I'm really proud of is it doesn't look like any comic I've ever read. There's not a lot of comics out there that are kind of rendered, like shaded, soft shaded. Usually it's like done with ink or, something like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. Like, it looks different than a lot of what's out there. And I think that's a good thing. I think like, I don't know. Personally, I think it's a good thing. I just tooting my own horn. Anyhow, so today, pretty interesting stuff. Family's out. They're visiting family members that live in Utah. And so that's a really good opportunity for me to like crunch down and get work done. But the problem is, not only am I going to miss having my wife around, because she kind of just keeps my bearings on. But the other thing is, my own devices ends up being kind of crazy. Like I've been like that for the entirety of my relationship with my wife, which has been, over, man, we've been together for a long time now. Let me see, 2005, so 2000, yeah, so almost 20 years. I've been with my wife, and she's helped me tremendously in things like waking up in the morning. Like, I'm one of those people, like, um, and I sleep really heavy. And then not only that, but like I am a night owl. Like it's just in my blood. I envy morning people. Um, but my goal in the 10 days or so that they're gone is going to be to kind of retain like a human being's schedule so that when the school year starts again, I'm not having like crazy adjustments to get back into, just human waking hours and not like vampirific types of hours. So right now what we're going to do is just some soft shading on the page, just kind of establishing lighting. It's kind of I don't think we're going to get into any colors today. Toad Road Cartoon said, "Oh yeah, hey Josh, how's it going?" Adam, I haven't talked to you in a while, my dude. How you been? How's life treating you? I've been off of streaming for a bit, just kind of getting stuff together, cranking out pages, and then like changing careers, like all sorts of interesting, wild stuff. I wonder how things have been going for you. Um, so anyhow, so yeah, like that's gonna be my challenge is like how do I keep my regular schedule? How do I keep like just a morning schedule? Without my amazing wife to kind of keep me keep me on. So that'll be interesting. I am really excited about playing music tonight because like our friend so my friend Jake, he's actually a character in two stories. We've been friends since like I was in fifth grade, and he's like the cool friend that I made when I was I was kind of an outcast nerd, and he was a nerd too. He was a bit of an outcast as well, but he was big. So like he's like the first friend that I had when I was dealing with bullies and stuff who'd like back me up, like um, and that was like a big deal. So and also I think taught me how to cuss because I was from like this background of like not cussing and stuff like that. Any He's on the No Saboteurs album, the one we just released, which if you haven't heard, it's incredible. I'm really proud of it, but it's the sun eventually sets on everything. And he is in town. He lives like kind of closer to like the San Diego area. I'm not gonna like dox him and say specifically where or anything, but he's in town for tonight, and so we get to play with the full band. Now, I've been playing music with these guys since I picked up music. So, it's my friend Josh and Jake and I have been playing music probably since I was 15. Not consistently, but it's just like actually Adam, you'll probably know about this cuz you play music as well. There's like a musical bond with where you riff on an idea and they can just kind of flow with it. It's like almost like having a really good improv group. Um, so like people you can just vibe off of and improvise and it feels real comfortable. So I'm excited about that because we're gonna play and probably work on recording a little bit of music. Um, and so that should be a nice little break from just my work. Knocking out pages and that's what I need to be doing because it's getting closer to deadline time. I literally had to send text files like I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but with like publishers and stuff, they have promotions and all that kind of stuff they have to do for books. And so it's getting real fast. Like I had to send the they sent okay for the cover art so that they can start kind of putting together like the spine and the promotional material and stuff to put it in their catalog and get distribution set up and you know, their sales team like briefed on it and all that kind of stuff. That is like the funnest part of well, funnest isn't a word. I've unfortunately used that on stream probably more than once. But that's one of the most fun things about kind of like publishing process is like when you're getting closer to release. And by the time I'm done with this book, it'll probably be like quite a few months. By the time I've forgotten about it is when it'll probably be released. but anyhow, because of that, I really have to like crunch out a lot of pages, like as many as I can humanly make in the next 10 days. Because I'll still have time to make pages and stuff like that throughout the year, but that time's going to be incredibly compressed between attending college again. Not too many class, like the course load's not going to be as heavy as last year, but it's still going to be a heavy course load. It's just not quite as many classes, which is cool. But I'm teaching, and teaching will be a little less heavy of a burden because I'm reteaching a subject I've already kind of created all the curriculum for. So one of the tough parts when you're first teaching a class that you haven't taught before is like getting together all the assignments and the materials and the references and making sure it's fulfilling the state standards for the different areas and elements of art that you're teaching. And kind of curve of a classroom and just kind of, you know, like just staying on the rails with like constantly having assignments to do and projects to work on and clear cut kind of stuff. So setting up your curriculum's like a ton of the work. Dylan's joining us in chats. How's it going, Dylan? Toad Road said, heads up, our video is lagging and stalling a little bit. Yeah, my internet connection's just been crap lately. So unfortunately, there's probably just going to be a lag and stall. I guess just let me know in the chats whenever I kind of dip out entirely. Hopefully it's watchable. Hopefully it's still watchable, but just let me know in the chats if it's like becoming unwatchably on and off. Thank you, Spectrum Internet. We're probably going to change our service at some point because it's just it's too much. It's too much lagging lately. Anyhow, so the nice thing about this next year, Dylan said, "I'm good. I'm thinking over dinner." Nice. Yeah, so the nice thing about this next year is less classes, so they'll be more intense because they're more advanced classes, but still less classes and less preparation for teaching. So that will free me up to get pages done, but I'm never going to be more free till the release of this book to do comic pages than I am in these next 10 days. So aside from kind of hanging out and playing music tonight, I'm going to be just kind of in crunch time, you know, just kind of pumping out pages. But why I'm mentioning that is not only nice. Dylan said a homemade burrito. What kind of burrito? You can't just mention a burrito and not get into the specifics, Dylan. Because I, as a fan of burritos, I do love me a burrito. Anyhow, so the fun part about this next week is going to be a lot of crunch time kind of working on stuff. All this is because my friends in town, once they're kind of ready to rock, I'm going to probably end the stream just to kind of, you know, go play some music and hang out with my friends for a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be pretty condensed. Now, the nice thing for streaming for those of you who like really enjoy my streams and stuff like that, is I'm going to be working on this page today. Hopefully I'll have it done, by the end of tomorrow. We'll see how long it takes. Here I'm imagining that the light source is coming kind of from over here, because there's a window in this room on the left side. But anyhow, so I'm going to be basically working on this page, like coloring and shading it, and I'll be streaming during the process of that, assuming I don't get like sucked into like listening to something on YouTube or something like that, or just like watching a show. I noticed that the Sandman season 2 came out on Netflix, and so while I was penciling this, I watched an episode of that. I actually like it a lot. I like the Sandman quite a bit. It's that do indie comics and stuff like that. So when I was a little emo kid, before emo was around, around the time that like Weezer's Blue album came out, just to give you a time frame, I'd be like listening to like Weezer, or what else came out around that, like the Downward Spiral, I'm trying to, it's funny, I was looking back at like what came out in like 94, uh, the other day, and I was just shocked at like the amount of like pretty incredible albums. There was No Need to Argue, I think, by the Cranberries. You had Crooked Rain, so I'm listening is like Pavement, and just getting my little depression on as a young teenager, and also reading just mad issues of the Sandman and feeling like I had stumbled upon like a massive secret. Like it just felt like this cool like mythical world that had just opened to me, and it was edgy and dark, and this is the time where I think the Crow soundtrack came out and stuff, so it's like and I was starting at that point, just barely starting to delve of punk rock. I think it was like probably the year after that I went like full out, got into like real punk rock. But prior to that, it was like a lot of rock and roll and indie rock, which is still close to my heart and technically kind of what I play. Anyhow, so I don't know why I was bringing that up. I was thinking about it the other day, just like what albums came out around that time. Yeah, so anyhow, like it was near and dear to my heart. It looks like I am kind of cutting out a little bit. Sorry about the bad connection, guys. Dylan said sometimes edgy is still fun. Todoro said, "Give me back my Crow soundtrack" is a line from a song I was just listening to. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other stuff that came out that year. It's crazy when you what was released and oh, we're cutting out again. What was mainstream around that time is just intense and kind of absurd to kind of think how good a lot of like mainstream music was. I think Alice in Chains released an album around then. You had a really one of Soundgarden's most like best albums. And that was like the mainstream. That's like the crap that was on the radio. I think the most mainstream from that time that like the jocks were listening to and I wasn't at the time was like TLC, which is like, in retrospect, it's not bad music either. I mean, compared to like a lot of more kind of modern, I'm a grandpa now, so I'm saying like the kids these days don't know what music is, but it was a good era in time. But it was also a really good kind of point in time to get really interested in like kind of the dark mythic world of the Sandman, and so it's fun because it's like I think the Netflix series has been doing a pretty good job of interpreting that pretty accurately to the books, at least close enough to me. It's been a long time since I've been like obsessively obsessed with that series, but it's stayed pretty dark comics in plot and tone and even direction. So some of the special effects are a little heavy on the CG, but I think it strangely kind of works with that world um, of the Sandman, and it's definitely better than, in my mind, like Dave McKean did a book, a movie years ago, and I can't even remember the name of it. I would remember the name of it if it had blown me away, but it was like visually interesting, but just like a very unwatchable movie. And I love Dave McKean's work. Like he's half of why I got into the Sandman, because I remember at that point in time when you went to the comic shops, which there were a bunch of comic shops at that time because it's like kind of towards the end of the image boom. But I do remember perusing the racks, and anytime you'd see Vertigo comics, their cover art was just so cool. But Dave McKean's like kind of just weird, trippy, collage and mixed media style of doing art, with like cool typography, with cut off letters, and like it just really stood out. Um, but anyhow, so I've been enjoying this series. Nice. Adam said the Not Death cover design looks amazing, by the way. Yeah, I'm really hoping they do at minimum a spot gloss on some of the areas that are kind of gold, but at best like some shiny gold. Give me shiny gold on me. On me cover. I need the shiny gold. I don't know why leprechaun when I'm talking about, I guess it makes sense talking about gold. But anyhow, so Adam said that'll look awesome in shiny gold. Me shiny gold. Anyhow, so needless to say, it was fun to watch. I think I watched like the first episode of season 2 while I was working on pencils for this. So I didn't really watch it. I just kind of listened it, but I like the casting. I really like who they have cast as Dream. I think it is funny though, because it does feel almost like a love letter to a 14 or 15-year-old boy who's like just getting into like gothic music, like there's parts of it that are like, as like at my age now are a little over dramatic and silly, but I still have, that like that dark, gothic kid inside of me somewhere. I never went full goth, but I definitely dated goths, that kind of thing. um there's elements of it where it's like, and the comic was like that too, where it'd be like that, we're just going to do this panel because it looks cool to have a guy in like cool goth outfits with like, um boots and just, we're going to do a panel and this panel's just gothic depression, but it's very fun. Oh, okay. Dylan said, try Kraft Smoky Hickory Bacon Alloy. I don't know what bacon alloy. I don't know what the word alloy is because I'm probably very ignorant, but it almost sounds like metal alloy. Uh, like the alloys that are mixed with metal or whatever. So anyhow, yeah, we're just gonna work on shading this page. Pray for the next hour or so, and just kind of hang out and work on art. Alternative styled men are hot. You can't change your mind. In my mind, no. I mean, like I am an advocate for you know for like the dark kind of punk look, like and the goth look. Like I have no problem with that. I wouldn't dress it now because I'd look like a real like a boomer kind or something, but the aesthetic of it is really cool. And then here's the thing that a lot of people don't know about the Sandman that got me into the Sandman is, like I said, I was like I'd be listening to like the Blue Album by Weezer, and writing letters to my pen pal the from the back of the Max. And back in the day, the Max, the comic, had a section in the back called Max Heads, and it would like give you like you know addresses and stuff to send like um Aoli Aoli. Okay, interesting. Um, so anyhow, like you'd get like a address or whatever to like mail off to like other fans of the Max to create like pre-internet guys, like most of us didn't even have a computer at home. I just said that again because I think I blipped out again. So anyhow, like imagine that, like a teenage kid at home listening to like Weezer's Blue Album, to your soul, like the music, and then perusing the latest issue of the Max or whatever, and then finding out that Sam Keith did this other comic art for this other comic series called the Sandman, and then reading the Sandman and just realizing it's like the most awesome thing ever. Book, and very impressive to me. So much so that when I first met my wife in college, one of our common ground things, like one of our first conversations in class, was I was just stoked to meet somebody else who was like really into reading the Sandman and Neil Gaiman's books and stuff. So as much as like I don't know how like correct it is anymore to kind of read those books, but still. Anyhow, so it's been fun to kind of go back to that. Adam said, I didn't know Sam Keith worked on the Sandman. Never really read it, but the covers were really interesting. Yeah, the Sandman, I think, can't remember the amount of issues, but he did the interior art for a lot of it. And actually, I think he's the one who came up with the design for Dream. I think he might be credited, like, I can't even remember, but I think he might be like the co-creator of some certain things. So the fun part is you can actually see the influence the Sandman had on the Max, because, the Max dealt with a lot of, I think they called it like, it's been a long time since I've read the Max, but it's like that world, I think it was like the Outback or something, but it's like the dream realm that was in the Max was like very much, I think, inspired by the Sandman, as well as like some of the storylines and kind of weird stuff with Mr. Gone. A lot of that's very Sandman adjacent. The dogs are gonna freak out because we're having so bear with us. Yeah, Adam's saying that makes sense if it was before the Max. Yeah, it was, but I think that's around the time. So I think he was working for DC at that time. So, but yeah, I'd have to look it up. Like you could probably look it up. I know it's like an unwatchable stream at this point because you got dogs just going woof a woof, and anyhow, so it's too bad I'm not working on roughs. Like tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to be working on roughs, and so if there are roughs while I'm working on roughs, it would just have like a whole meta layer to it, where it could be like, hey, tune into my stream while I'm working on roughs, and then all you hear are just my dogs barking. Yeah, I bet you look it up and find out that the stuff that Sam Keith did with the Sandman, but I think he's even credited as like co-creator of certain characters and stuff. Okay, let's get into it. So we're shading this page. What else? Oh yeah, I do want to work a little bit on some solo stuff too. So once like maybe at the beginning of the day tomorrow or the end of the day, I'll get into doing this. Uh, that's another thing because I want to keep the train going on the solo music, and I've stopped doing it for the last few weeks or whatever, and I feel like that's one of those things, kind of like working out, where kind of don't want to lose momentum. Let's see here. So we're just kind of building the establishing coming from the, and we're blipping in and out off stream. So this is high quality streaming, guys. This is like the pinnacle of technology here. Dogs barking, streams cutting out. Where else will you find this kind of entertainment, you guys? Like, hit like and the bell, just from this beautiful entertainment. So anyhow, yeah, I've been just having a really chill day. Yeah, it's been nice to like kind of just work on comics, try to kind of stick to a routine. Did some rowing today. Dylan was saying top-notch streaming. Exactly. You know, who needs high-tech, beautiful things? This is the, this is the pirate radio of YouTube, okay? Lawnmowers in the background. Anywho, so we have all kinds of incredible things happening in the world of this comic. I'm excited about it getting closer to release. And like, here's the thing too that's really cool about this. It does make a difference. Like, I remember a couple years back, Adam, you might remember, possibly all the way back to when I started streaming. Yeah, Dylan was saying all you need is a jet or two flying over. Well, I do live in the Antelope Valley, so there might be jets flying over because we live not too far away from Edwards Air Force Base. So, I think I've mentioned this before, but you always know new people to this town, like, because they like jump when they hear a sonic boom. That's just how like much we have just like crazy planes and jets, and I think the whole valley, like the valley I live in, is all built off of the military industrial complex. I'm pretty sure like the biggest employers out here are the Air Force, Lockheed Martin, and Boeing. So it's a real it's funny because a lot of people will think like, if you're in the Antelope Valley, or not in the Antelope Valley, but if you're not from California, a lot of people will think, oh, you live in LA County, and they think of like Los Angeles. They don't think of this like weird little red district at the very edge of this very strangely drawn county line. That's a whole weird thing too. Like the way that LA County is, it's just kind of bizarre. Like what's considered LA County, what's not. But if you look at the way the district map is drawn in our areas, it's bizarre. Although I will proudly say that we're a purple district and we're repped by a Democrat right now, which is pretty cool. Dylan said, I live close to Luke Air Force Base. I'd say the same thing. I'd put close in quotes. It's not like I'm like next door to them, but close enough to where like seeing like bomber planes like flying above isn't, wild. Yeah, but that's a fun era to think about. Like 1994 was a interesting realm of time. It's like you had Nirvana's Unplugged in New York had come out, and it was like right at the heels of I think Kurt Cobain had offed himself at that point. But just like a really interesting time in music. At the time, really hating Bush, the band Bush. Um, I could not stand Bush when I was a teenager. I just thought they were just like it to me at that time. And keep in mind now, looking back, it's like I don't think they were a terrible band. I don't think Gavin Rossdale was like the devil. But at the time, I just felt like it was the most like poser music ever presented because it just felt like, in that era, listening to Bush felt like a music executive being like, this grunge thing is hip. What if we put a supermodel as the head of a band and wrote kind of mediocre grunge songs and tried to kind of mimic the way that, like if we mixed in a cocktail, like Eddie Vedder, like pushed it on people. Like, anyhow, that's kind of what it used to feel like. But it's funny now because I'm like, man, that, I'd say like Bush is probably a better band than like 90% of supposed rock bands now, which is probably, I don't know, not that, but there's good stuff now, Anyhow, so working on shading. How are you guys? What projects have you been working on? I hope everything is well with you. I hope you guys are working on some cool projects. Let's see here. All right, let's get this shading. So I think the aim here is going to be, to shade as much of this as I can, before the doomsday approaches. Dylan said Glycerine is a good song. Yeah, we used to cover it as a joke, just making fun of Gavin Rossdale when we were in bands. We'd do a cover of it called Listerine. Again, like, the thing is too, like, this is the thing. You guys are going to find this too. As I get older, I get way less snobby. I used to be really snobby about music. Dylan said, I had my cleaning lady come out this Monday. My house is a bit cleaner. She'll be coming out again in the next week or two. Nice. You have a cleaning lady? That's pretty cool. Does that cost? I know that, like, the first, like the first year or two we were in this house, I just felt terrible getting like a gardener. And but then, like, I think it was like my wife and I sat down. We're not wealthy, right? But we just did the math on like the amount of time I would spend in the yard, like working on, it just cost. It cost more to do it. Like cost us more income me doing it than paying somebody else to do it. Because like I could be working on paying art projects and stuff. So we bit the bullet, and now we have somebody do our front yard. But I remember that being like a really weird thing because I was like, I think I've talked about this before. Like my wife and I, when we first met, it's like we're both art students and we were like expecting an artist's existence. So the idea of even owning a house was just like such a bizarre prospect. Like, you know, and initially we moved to the AV just because it was close to where I was an art director at the time. So like that was just like such a bizarre uh thing. So to go from that was just insane. Toad Road said editing a new video for my Dino Golf fake Nintendo game soundtrack. Nice. And Adam also said he's working on a thing for Jim. Nice. That's cool. I still think you should make Dino Golf like uh an actual thing. Like Dino Golf should be an actual um game. All right, guys. We're getting there. We're getting there. I don't like how the shadow is not like effective here, so I'm gonna kind of darken it a little bit. I want to have more extreme shadows. And then let's do just a little bit up here. Because nothing's like perfect. Nothing's perfectly bright like that. Dylan said, for a cleaning lady, they only took $40 this week, but said next time they'll do it for free since I have and she doesn't want to deplete my money. Nice, that's cool. Toad Road said, I have a Game Boy 1 too. Oh, he said Dino Golf soundtrack with a title screen is an actual playable NES file. Nice. Video games, that's kind of crazy. He does them on I'm trying to think of what there's like a couple apps that allow you to like on their platform like design games. I think one of them's called like Geometry Dash, and then I can't remember the other, but he's actually like really good at like building levels and characters, and it's like it's crazy. And animations, like it's just kind of weird that he just does it like flawlessly. He's a very talented kid. Like I feel like by the time he's my age, the act of just doing a comic that doesn't move is going to be like meh, you know, because he'll be like, well, I can make like full animated movies in my sleep, you know, like I don't know, it's it's kind of crazy. I've sent. Oh, Adam was saying, who does this? My son. He's like really into building video games and stuff, using specific apps. But he'll like create his own characters and like on like little animations he made and stuff. Because he has like original characters that he's developed and like this whole like kind of world of characters, but it's all like for video games, like and little animations and stuff. He even had this little animation challenge for a little bit where he was asking people to send him their ideas for what he. And it's really funny. He'd like take on the challenges and really rock them. Where they'd be like, "Hey, I'd like your original characters to be like dancing, or I'd like them to be." Man, there's a couple that are just nuts, like that. He just anyhow. He's a very talented kid. Um, it's fun to see. Like that's one thing that's really fun about being a having creativity in areas that are different than you. You know, like for instance, a good example, like I'm really into rock and roll and music with guitars and stuff. My son's really into video game music. Like all his favorite music is like, you know, soundtracks to video games that he likes to play. And they're actually pretty cool soundtracks. Like video game music has really adapted a lot. So a lot of it sounds like industrial or like just different electronic stuff like techno, and it has like a different vibe than a lot of video, but still has like a foot in the 8-bit realm, because like I feel like that's kind of the still like the basis for like what a lot of even modern video game music is based on. Okay. Happen as a real we're cutting out and in. So my hope here is at minimum let's get this panel shaded, and then I definitely got to walk my dogs before I head over to my friend's house too. Make sure they get their little exercise. Let's see here. Little rough. I'm curious about your guys' creators too. When do you find time to read comics? Like that's the thing. Like I have a bunch of Klaus's books that I missed, like in the years that I've been making comics. I like loved Daniel Klaus a lot. Like his work and stuff is just amazing to me. But it's like I've just not been able to read. And finally, for my birthday, like in May, so like 2 months ago, somebody got me a bunch of the Klaus books that I hadn't read yet that were on my wish list. And they've literally just been sitting in like a little pile because it's like I don't know when I'm gonna. I think I do when I finish this book is like take a month off and just read again, like like make time to read. I don't know, when do you guys find time to read? And reading is so fun, like but it's just like, yeah, it requires eyes to look at, especially a comic, like a book you can do as an audiobook and stuff, but it's hard to maintain reading comics and making comics at the same time. But I feel like it's probably really important because it's like giving you inspiration and stuff for, you know, other ideas or like ways to. Dylan said, I'm lucky since I can spend my days mostly doing what I want. That's cool. And then Toad Adam said, I have plenty of time to read, but I still struggle with getting focused enough to do it. I feel like that might be a modern. A lot. I do think that like there is something really healthy about reading and like materially, like even just sitting down and watching a whole film. Like oh, I forgot to mention that's something I caught up on over the summer. So I think I've mentioned this. Like it's like after the semester was over for school and for teaching, um, burning the candle, doing full-time teaching and full-time college at the time. It was just nuts. And then like a bunch of other stuff as well as this book, and just like too many things, And so the first day or two that I had off, I slept, but I also I watched Dune and again, and I rewatched and I watched for the first time the second Dune movie. And that was just, and I allowed myself to just uncritically just enjoy like a piece of cinema. And it dawned on me when I was doing that. I was like, I haven't done that in years. Just like watch something without pausing it, just experiencing it, being able to kind of enjoy it. Like I haven't done that in a long time. Um, it was really fun and meaningful. Like it was really cool. It was like, oh yeah, that's pretty rad to because I was a fantasy nerd as a kid too, so I had read Dune and you know the, the sequels were not as good in my opinion as like in the books. They had hits and misses, but yeah. So anyhow, I guess what I was getting at is like I do think there's like a modern era problem of people just being like attached to their phones and the internet and you know I know the internet has memes about it too, where it's like, basically telling people they need to touch grass, like get outside, um but it's like I think there is some truth to that. Like I definitely can say as a teacher, if somebody were to ask me like what is the biggest problem, what is the biggest obstacle for learning that I see in like, kids, like teenagers, the next generation and stuff. And it literally is like cell phones. Like cell phones are like if you see the like addiction um that like kids, like think back to what I was just talking about, like the 14-year-old listening to you know, Weezer's Blue Album and like, going through the liner notes. I'd light candles in my room and like, feel all goth, like reading the Sandman and stuff like that. And it's like flash forward and now that kid is basically like on an iPad or an electronic device and they're scouring from app to app. Like it's not even like a Nintendo back in the day where you had one system and you had a new game and you'd sit with that game for a long time. It's like nobody's sitting with anything for a long time. Um, you, but it's like this information age that where we're bombarded with data. Um, and I just think there's a part of it that's like slightly inhuman, like the amount of just on and off data that we're bombarded with. How's it going, Gary? Sorry for being on such a dark topic when you just joined, but ESM coming. Um, yeah, so just constantly being bombarded by distractions. Like I find that to be one of the biggest hurdles when I sit down to do a page is like, being able to sit here and actually, and hopefully you guys are doing this too while I'm streaming. Hopefully this is providing you like an avenue, like some background noise, or doing something, beneficial like eating or, like or working on a project or something. Because yeah, I do think that's going to be the kind of query of the modern age, other than just like crazy stuff like that, I wouldn't have predicted years ago, like the global order just being completely at threat. Just like, some more dire, just kind of scary stuff that's hard to predict. But on top of that, like we just have this weird societal issue, I think, of constant distraction, like constant distraction, constant entertainment, um, and that can take away from the ability to just kind of sit and be creative, or sit and allow thoughts to bloom, or really engage and absorb a piece of artwork. Um, and I'm not saying that in like a judgmental way because I think it affects me as well. It's like I said, because I mean, luckily a lot of it's because I am making things. Um, but it's like, yeah, just like the idea, like, Thoreau's idea of kind of like, uh, getting rid of all restraining things and having like a, Walden Pond or something is just like that is like absolutely uh, hard to even imagine being an age. Nice. Gary said he didn't even catch the topic, pushing to try and finish page 38 by tomorrow sometime. Nice. I am just basically shading. I might be streaming for a little bit longer. But I'm going to be walking my dogs and then going over to a friend's house to play music later tonight. But I will probably either late tonight or early tomorrow be finishing this page. I don't know if I'll be able to finish tonight. That would be cool if I could. Page 38 though, Gary, that's huge, man. I love how it's coming out, and the little sneak peeks that I've gotten from your book are really pretty incredible. Gary said, "Is it just me, or is your stream dropping a little here and there?" No, it's not just you. It's my internet has been just terrible the last last month or so. I need to either switch services or like have somebody out from the internet service to kind of fix it up. Gary said, thanks, I've been ramping up, sharing bits of this one as I get close. Yeah. I think I say this like every time you're working on a book, but this one definitely looks like your best work. At least visually, it just looks like everything you do looks visually good, but this one just feels like real dialed in. Like you kind of know where you're heading. And then I'm excited because I think this one is going to really up the ante on action and suspense. So I can't wait to see it. For those who don't know, too, I am a model on there. I'm a model of a character. I am the very model of a modern major general. Okay. He said he feels like he's taking big swings on this one. I would agree with that. Okay, guys, I've been going for an hour. I'm going to put on a trailer, and then I'm going to grab some water, and then I think let's see how far we can get. Let's try to go maybe another half hour. So here, let me find the trailer. It's been a while since I played one of these. Let's do Frank Salazar's library.
Our heroic adventurers fought orcs, monsters, sorcerers, necromancers. Now they find themselves in front of a mystical library. What shall they find? It's all in the roll of the dice.
We've come this far. There's great power behind this door. I can feel it. We just have to get past it. This door is no match for my axe. I shall chop it down. You always want to use brute strength. Why don't you try knocking? We'll try it your way. You may enter. The library is open to all those who seek knowledge. Feel free to look through our tomes. Maybe you'll find the answers you seek. I sense great power here, and it's behind those shelves. Indeed, there are powerful items hidden behind these shelves, but you can only get there through the enchanted words. Do you have those words? I believe I do.
Tremble before the Cremble.
There is great power. Look at that glove. Must be so powerful. That is not where I sense this power. I must get closer. I found them. I found these sacred manuscripts. written by Joshua Kemble. Behold, I now possess 2 stories and Jacob's apartment. Please tell us more about 2 stories and Jacob's apartment, and who is Joshua Kemble? Xeric Award-winning cartoonist Joshua Kemble is a freelance artist, graphic designer, and author. 2 Stories is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. Jacob's Apartment is a coming-of-age graphic novel in the vein of Ghost Road and Fun Home. It weaves together the threads of spiritual faith, identity, purpose, love, and loss to create an engrossing world in which waking and sleeping dreams collide. You have made your choice. The passage is now closed. Wait, can I get that glove? No. Oh. All right, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back. I just got a glass of water. That's helpful. The hardest thing about not vaping, because I used to smoke and then I ended up switching to like vaping, and now I am just kind of taking like nicotine supplements so that I don't smoke. And I've been doing that for I'm about weeks of not like smoking at all. The hardest part of that is my appetite is a lot bigger. I think there's like some kind of suppressing thing with smoking where you just get less hungry. And so I have to really personally be like a little more careful with that than I did previously, because if I get like super hungry, I can mistake that as like really desiring, like to smoke. And so that's, I think, one of the hardest parts of kind of kicking that habit. It's something I'm trying to get used to, but it's been fascinating to just kind of realize like how much that's like embedded. Let's see here. Let me see. Some shortcut I accidentally will do on Photoshop to quick mask, which is funny. So it'll like make a layer into a quick mask layer, and I never use quick mask because that's the lazy way to mask. Like if you're gonna mask something, do it proper with a pen tool and stuff. Anyhow, so I have to be careful with that. Like the hunger thing could be a real like if I don't have snacks or stuff like that around, I'll start kind of feeling like I want to smoke, and that's not a good habit to feed. But I remember the thing I was talking about with the Sandman TV series is it makes me feel a little bit like when Lord of the Rings, the movies came out, which to me are still in like probably some of my favorite movies of all time. I feel like that series was just like the Lord of the Rings trilogy is amazing cinema. Like casting, the story, it's just great. And I loved Lord of the Rings as a kid. And I was really into reading Lord of the Rings and into Tolkien and stuff like that. But I remember when that came out, it kind of renewed and it like stoked the flame of what I loved about the original books. And there's this weird, eerie thing that happens with art. Sometimes where you listen, it's like listening to a song that you used to love and you haven't heard in years. It can transport you back to the time that that you first heard or were reading the books and stuff like that. So a little bit of that happens whenever I watch an episode of The Sandman, where I'll be transported back to where I was when I first read it, and when I first got through like a certain um part of the book, you know. And so when it gets to like a plot line, I'll be like remembering, you know, something from when I was like 14 or so. It's interesting to me that art can transport you like that. Like not only the art, but just the memory attached to it, where it does make me question nostalgia a little bit. Like, do you guys ever wonder? I mean, I'm sure everybody's had those moments where you want, like, I feel that way with Star Wars, where Star Wars is embedded so much in like the psyche of my early youth, you know? Like I grew up with Star Wars, and so it's almost impossible to like divorce the actual thing from the thing that I loved so much when I was younger. Um, to where, you know, it would be hard to say whether it's even good or not, because it's been such a part of my life that it's hard to imagine, like, if somebody says I don't like this thing, it's like it really feels like an identity shifter kind of thing. Um, Similar thing with like Lord of the Rings, but uh, it's an interesting thing that you can marry not only the significance of the work that you read or whatever and its impact on you, but that art kind of along with it can carry the memories of where you were when you read it or heard it, or where you were at like in your development when you read it, like, you know, how it might have shifted your mindset. Because I remember like we did a long vacation when I was younger. I'm just gonna talk memories a little bit because why not? We're working on art. We're hanging out together. But uh, I do remember like my family had a trip to Boulder, Colorado, because my uncle lived in Colorado. In Boulder, he was like a really great guy. But anyway, we did this long road trip up to Colorado. It felt like forever, but it was just we just drove to Colorado and stopped at cool places along the way. And to visit and stay with, you know, my aunt and uncle. And that was on that road trip. I remember to Mile High Comics, because at the time when I was younger, like every comic had an ad for like the world's biggest comic book store. I think that's how they advertised it. I might be remembering it wrong, but they had a full page ad for like Mile High Comics. And I remember in my head it was just like uh Star Wars Episode 1 is the most nostalgic for me despite its many flaws. Yeah. Um yeah, I agree, Adam. Um but I remember like so we were heading up there and we had like borrowed like a friend of my family or something had like lent us like a camper, and it's like one of those like camper side pullouts and stuff. So we literally went up to Colorado and camped and stuff. But I remember that whole trip. Um, you know, I was like a early teen, like early teen years, and I'm stuck in this camper with, you know, my sisters, uh, who are awesome. But I just, you know, that alien, especially to like siblings and stuff, and being stuck with like siblings that you don't relate to and stuff on a long trip. And I remember on that trip, on that ride, a couple really notable little pieces of art that like traveled with me because I read them on the road, like on that whole drive. Like it was like multiple days on the road. And one of the things I read was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or been gifted the what almost looks like a Bible. It's like the big leather bound full Hitchhiker's Guide. Like I, like many kids, had bought the first one at a used bookstore for like $1. The first Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and then I was like, well, now I have to read everything, you know, because it was like, you know, it's like that era where I had just discovered money my sense of humor, I started, you know, like you feel alienated and then you find humor that like speaks to you. And so on that trip, yeah, I think that's when I first read all the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's how long of a trip it was. I think I read every book. And then I caught up on the Sandman, and then managed to get some like back issues and stuff when we did get to Colorado, you know, to go to Mile High, because that's back when, you know, you couldn't just go, oh, I'm really into a series, I'll pay for the whole digital thing. You'd have to like, you know, issue hunt and fill in the blanks to kind of find out what happened. But those having like a really big impact on me, like both Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and the Sandman. And I think that on that trip, this is a weird thing that I had almost forgotten. But on that trip, you know, getting more and more interested in the Sandman. The first Sandman thing I read was Death, the High Cost of Living. The mini series. But I remember like on that trip, when I was at Mile High, this is funny. I'd forgotten about this actually. I'm just remembering it. But they had like comic paper, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world. Like all the comic stores near me did not have this. They were more like, you know, like baseball card and like mainstream comic shops. They didn't have like the blue line, you know, printed official comic book paper, which at the time was really special. And I remember, I think my family actually forked out to get me like one pack of it. We weren't really wealthy, so that was like a big deal. And I remember on that trip, starting a comic. Like, I was so inspired by the Sandman that I think I finally finished like a comic page. Now, after that trip, I remember that comic page, and it was on that special paper, you know, and I worked on it for probably like a month and a half or something, like a page of a comic I wrote. But the thing is, I hadn't written a full script or anything. I just, you know, because at the time I was kind of thinking, oh, all comics are written like the Marvel method or whatever. So I just came up with the first page for a comic, and it was going to be like a, you know, real indie, like jaded teenager kind of book. And that page, like I think I put it on my wall of my room with like a bunch of pictures of, you know, bands and things I loved and comics and stuff like that. On the walls of my bedroom when we got back, but I don't think I really did another page on that paper because it just felt really expensive, and you know, I didn't want to like mess up the paper. But anyhow, my point, that series had enough of an impact to get me over like the hurdle, because it's like that young teenage thing where when I was like, you know, I've written about this in two stories too, where you know, I had no problem drawing comic pages when I was, you know, really little. Like before I hit my teens, I was able to just like make comic pages just for fun, you know, and it was just like but then I hit my teenage years where you get like self-conscious, and I think I started getting plagued with that fear of failure attached to comics, where it just had to be perfect. It had to be professional. And I did further my art skills and stuff, but I just didn't feel worthy of doing comic art. But anyhow, my point is the Sandman comics were impactful enough to where it inspired me to at least get over that hurdle for one page. And I'm sure it was some kind of edgy page, you know. But that was a real impactful thing, being able to go to like this comic store where it was like, wow, this is like a whole thing. It's not just like this niche little like thing. And also being able to go to the place that I fantasize about going there, because I really loved comics, you know. So anyhow, yeah, that's a little note about one of the other memories that kind of came up from watching that. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish this panel, finish shading this panel, and then I'm going to eat and give my dogs a walk. But here's the thing. You want to hit the bell so you get notifications when I'm about to go live. Hit the like button if you watched this live and enjoyed it. Consider picking up my books, my 2 stories in Jacob's Apartment. Jacob's Apartment is a story about 2 polar opposites that are roommates. Young, trying to figure out their identity and meaning and, their belief system, their spiritual beliefs. They're kind of conflicted and they're plagued by traumatic past memories from childhood that are kind of haunting their modern lives. And then when Jacob, the main character, is hit with his father's an awakening and a questioning of everything he believes, and also like a first love kind of experience. So it's kind of like, a pretty indie book, but a slice of life and doomed to romance. And if you like that sort of thing, you should check out Jacob's Apartment. And then there's 2 stories, which is my comic about faith and mental illness. Check out those. Listen to No Saboteurs. If you want a sneak preview of what kind of music I'm going to be playing tonight, check out The Sun Eventually Sets on Everything by No Saboteurs. It's on streaming platforms everywhere. And yeah, stay tuned because I'll be ages, so that means I will be likely streaming again, possibly tonight. I might stream to at least finish the shading on this page. But we got a little bit of work done. And we got everything kind of set. Thanks for dealing with the choppy ins and outs of this stream. And thanks again to you guys in the community. It's always fun to hear company while we work on art. So with that, I'm going to take off and eat some food and walk my dogs. But I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a good creative day ahead of you. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.